Well, Coach, maybe just kind of give us a progress report. How pleased are you with your group at this point?
No, I love the way they work. I mean, we got a good group. Our coaches did a great job recruiting, fighting through the draft, fighting through the portal. Ends up being a long summer, there. And then we've been on the field. We're a little bit later than normal. Recruiting calendar kind of changed on us, so we're still recruiting a lot right now. So we kind of backed up that way. So we've only been out here about a week and a half, but I like it. And when you scrimmage each other, if the offense is really good, then you're worried about the pitching, and then vice versa. So, but I like what I see. I like how we're working right now. I think the guys are getting after it pretty good.
Robbie? Baseball roster management's always been, kind of wild because you have the draft and things like that. But now you add in, the roster's getting turned over with the transfer portal. How big is this part of the calendar for you to kind of figure things out with your team and kind of get everybody acquainted with each other?
Well, I feel like the summer's a nightmare now. You finish the season and you just don't have a day off until when the first day of school and they're in class and they're not signing, and it's even free agency now. You finally take a deep breath a little bit because it's a lot. But if you look, us roster-wise, we're probably 50-50. 50 were here last year and 50% weren't. And so you spend a lot of time. I mean, we still probably. I had somebody in the dugout the other day. Hey, that guy's pretty good. What's his name? Like you're in that world. Like, so We're going. We play UAB I think next week. So we're going to go over the night before. And I got seating assignments on the bus. I got roommate assignments with senior freshmen. We're going to play some top golf. So we're going to break up our teams. Like, it becomes a lot of team building, culture building. This day and age is more about building a great team year to year than used to be. We'd always say, hey, we're building a great program and we stack, but the transition is so big right now. Same with us with the draft. We had 3 sophomore eligible guys signed last year. So, that dynamic changes everything, so.
Doug?
Coach, I want to ask you about any surprises that you've had from the newcomers. If you don't want to name names, maybe break it down by freshmen and transfers.
It's kind of early. I think it's a surprise. Jackson Owens hitting a home run about every other at bat right now in our scrimmages, so he's not a new one, but he's had a really good start here to fall ball. I think Ace Reese, one of our transfer portal kids that we got, third baseman's been pretty impressive offensively. Still got some work to go in other areas, but has been pretty good. And then I think Chase Hungate's been fun to watch as a pitcher. You can just tell the maturity. The kid who's done it, been in good programs, pitched in Omaha. It's just pretty impressive.
Steve?
We talk so much about portal, but you've had some high school guys that have done some pretty cool things so far. How pleased are you with maybe the traditional recruiting class?
Yeah, the high school kids have been great. Charlie Foster threw yesterday, threw really well. Duke Stone has thrown well. Jack Gleason's thrown well. I'm going to miss guys. Braden Booth. Ryan McPherson threw yesterday for the first time. He has a Tommy John guy coming back, and he was really good 2 days ago. And then the young freshmen, we have will probably be a fan favorite, Lucas Buckner's. He's actually probably smaller than Rashawn, I think, but is a really good player and really knows how to play the game. But we just have some other guys in that mix that have played well in our freshman class. So I think the freshmen have been good. It's too many to name. And like you said, it's so many different. You have a freshman recruiting class, then we have our JUCO recruits, and then we have our portal recruits. It's like in 3 phases now of guys, and our JUCO guys have been really good too.
John?
You talked about Chase a little bit ago, but him and Jacob Pruitt, a couple of guys who, obviously big names from the portal that you brought in, but also, have pitched in big baseball games in the past. What do you kind of envision those 2 guys, their role for your program, and how big is the experience that they've had in the past?
Well, they have big roles. They're both very talented and they have a lot of experience, like you said. So we'll count on them in some big roles. First team meeting, and I'm chewing the team's ass about, us being in Charlottesville, number 1, and losing, and Chase is just sitting there smiling, right? Like, because he was on the other side of it. So it's a different world that way, because that's the message to the team is taking care of business, so you don't have to go to a Charlottesville, But those kids, they've been great, and it's just a maturity about them. I think there's a real maturity, probably really with Chase. He's been there and done it so long, and just very calm, easygoing. But all our portal guys, that's been probably the best part about. They're very talented, but you're getting a very mature demeanor. Some guys that have really done it, and they fit in really well.
Robbie? On the catchers, Ross last year was dealing with that injury, and you brought in so many new faces. You mentioned J.O. This you think is standing out so far. What's that group look like, and how much better do you feel about them this year with some experienced guys coming back?
Well, the day before we started, Ross pulls his hamstring, so but he's worked really hard. He's close, and he's probably going to catch here in the next week or so. He's still probably at the back end of his throwing program, so you may not see him throw to second, but he'll definitely catch and do. And he's worked a lot with Goat on his swing. He's got a chance to be really special there. Joe Powell's better than he was this time last year. I think he's comfortable, can really receive, swinging it well. And then I think Jackson Owen is a piece that, and he's probably the most improved guy on the team right now. And took a lot of things personal, redshirted last year. But just, once again, a mature kid, a tough kid, from Starkville right here. So it's, I like having, I keep giving Pulliam a hard time because Ethan's been able to jump out with us a little bit because he's doing football. But, the Starkville high school guys have been pretty good for us. And then Steven Splittis improved a good bit. And then we have a JUCO guy, Ben Davis, who does both too. So we've kind of upgraded and, having 5 guys in there. Ben will pitch a lot for us, but he has the ability to catch. Doug?
Coach, I want to go back to recruiting for just a minute. You have to feel good about having recruiting classes ranked this year and next year. But when you look at the list, there's a dozen other SEC schools there. So regardless of who you play or don't play, do you think the SEC is going to be even tougher this year?
I think it's always. I mean, it's just, like you say, you could finish 11th in recruiting and there's 8 SEC teams in front of you sometimes. I mean, they're just all coming to our league. So it's about getting the right guy, the right fit. Some years we've had, like I look at this year's class and some of the Charlie Fosters and Duke Stones and some of those kids we got who probably aren't ranked real super high and they're really, really special players. But like next year's class for us coming in, we haven't signed them yet, but I think every guy, like it's maybe the second highest ranking in the country. And you can stick your chest out and be proud, and the next thing you know, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and the Red Sox take them. So you never know in our business right now. Steve?
How about a health report on some guys that maybe missed time last year, Makai Grant, Stone, those guys? How are you feeling about their progression?
Makai's back. He's breaking balls on the mound now, so he'll probably pitch here at the end of the fall in limited time. But we will keep him cranked up. Even when the team segment finishes, probably to work. But he's right on track. Looks good, doing well. You mentioned Stone. Stone's good. He went out and pitched for Coach Polk this summer. He had 4 starts he was allowed to do, and I'm surprised Polk didn't call and try to get a 5th. I don't think he gave up any runs this summer, but he's been good. He was up to 92, 94 the other day. So who was the third one there? Was there a third one?
Well, I was thinking
Ross was one,
And we hadn't seen Cade O'Leary pitch yet either. I mean, what?
No. Cade's working back into it. So he's progressing. And Dylan Cupp, if you come to a scrimmage, Dylan's fine. He's working back. He had knee surgery as the season was over last year. So Dylan can take all his ground ball. He just can't do any live reps. So he hits in a scrimmage and then he doesn't run. So, I make a determination if he's out or not, but he can kind of do everything. He's progressing along nicely too. So we have a handful that we look forward to getting back that missed last year. Benjamin?
Obviously you're a long way from the springtime, but in terms of just building out that weekend rotation and the guys who feel like are going to be in contention to start for you, apart from Pico, who kind of came on last year, which guys do you feel like are going to be able to make that jump and head in there?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is Carson Ligon. I think Carson's was a 2-year starter, a weekend starter from Miami. Kind of got here last year, was banged up a little bit. I think he spent a lot of time at Park working, getting back. Had a great summer in the Cape Cod League. I mean, upper 90s type of guy. He's been upper 90s here for us in his first 2 starts. I think he's got a guy with that experience, and he could have easily been drafted. Him and Hunter and some of those other guys. Pico was called early in the draft and just wanted to come back, spend another year working with Park and going that way. Jacob Pruitt's one. Stone Simmons, some of the young kids. I mean, we have Makai Grant is probably a starter type of guy. That big arm talent, you'd like to get as many innings out of him as you could. So I think we have, really good, group of potential starters. Sam?
When it came to constructing your schedule for the season, how much, if at all, did you kind of consider what happened last year when it came to hosting the regional?
I don't. Well, one, you do them a couple years in a row. The key, the reality is if you win those games you're supposed to win, the constructing of the schedule doesn't matter. Like it's not but the fact that we lost to Central Arkansas here, Austin Peay twice, probably Air Force in there, that was a difference in our schedule. So, but ours, we're going to go on the road for a trip, do one road trip, play in a good environment, and then play some groups here. I really tried to change if you look at ours, I've tried to change our midweeks. We're going home and home with Southern Miss, home and home with Memphis. Trying to get, I'll play a couple of SWAC schools, but the ones with RPIs that are a little bit higher. Trying to take out some of these. If you notice when we go play UAB, Sanford, Memphis, we're not playing the pro parks anymore because you lose your RPI away game. It becomes a neutral. So trying some things in that way. But right now the SEC and the strength of schedule in the SEC is so high. I don't, really, you look at Georgia's, like Georgia was one, they just took care of their business all the way through. And it put them ahead of ours just because they didn't lose those games early.
Danny P.
Coach, I know it's a process, but in your experience, how much can a player improve from one year to the next where he can really contribute the next year?
Oh, I think it's huge. I mean, look at Connor Heisek or Tyler Davis. I think the year that you come into the SEC can be tough for some. And then spending that year and learning from that year, and if you learn the right way, then you see a lot of kids make big jumps. I think as you look across our league, probably, freshmen, you got to jump in and really be a talented freshman to get in, but that next year is when they make jumps. So I look at our sophomore class, and, Nolan Stevens went out and had a great summer. That's a guy that he could be an upper draft pick type of guy, but he's got to show up and perform and do, but he had a really good summer in a really good league.
John?
What was you talked about that meeting that you had with your guys? I know a lot of them on the team were on that team from last year. You talked to them about Charlottesville a little bit. What was that kind of meeting like, and how do you expect this group to respond after that, take a step forward this year?
It's just your first team meeting of the year, so most of that meeting's a ton of rules. But just at the end, we talked about accountability and being consistent every day. And when Mississippi State loses midweek games, most of those are because we don't show up instead of, you're not the underdog many times in those games. And baseball's a different game than football. Football, you'll plow through. So we know there's good arms, there's good teams. We play so many good teams on our schedule, but most of the time, you're the favorite. And so it's having the right mentality. I think my first year we were here, I don't think we lost the midweek game. And so that message to guys of it's about being consistent, coming out with a consistent approach and a consistent focus each day. And you start that now, the way you practice. So,
Robbie? You were talking earlier last year about the difference that Justin Parker had made with your staff, just the mentality and things like that, and then you back that up with the 3 weekend starters you had drafted in the first 2 days.
Yeah.
A year into this, just having a full season with him, what's the outlook for what he's done for this program through one season and kind of what he's going to do for you moving forward?
Well, I think he's established now. I think that's why the Picos and the Carsons, they kind of know what they're getting now. So it's last fall it was such a big jump, but we knew, but you knew that Nate Dome was really good. You knew Durangelo was really good. It may not look like it out from the outside looking in, but we knew if we could just get our guys in-house pitching well, we could make a jump. And I think now that Justin's had 1 year, all those returners, you're just adding on to it each time and developing a pitching staff with a real edge, which I think that's what you get with him a lot of time. In his day-to-day, it's about being tough and pitching tough and competing, and he does a great job with that.
Doug?
Coach, you mentioned Nolan, and I tried to follow him this summer. I don't think he did anything but hit. Is that right?
Right. We shut him down.
Yeah.
Just let him hit all summer long.
So two-way players, they could be key when you deal with roster issues. And Nolan and Luke, it looks like you got 4 or 5 recruits coming in.
We got Nolan's two-way in this fall. Noah Sullivan is probably the #1 two-way player in the country that came in. He's two-way in for us. Braden Booth, the Alabama Gatorade Player of the Year, is a shortstop pitcher, which I'm having to slow him down all the time. He wants to throw everywhere, but he's really talented. And then Ben Davis is a catcher pitcher that we got right now. So we got 4 of them. We actually lost one in the draft, who the Red Sox are letting do both. So I've had a ton of two-way guys in my career, and now with roster management, 27-man rosters on the weekend, but also if 34-man roster comes in, that you're going to have a little bit more versatile of a player, at least a couple of them, and I think these guys can do it.